All right. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Like he said, Weber International University, small NAIA school in Central Florida, just south of Orlando. If anybody's ever in that area, please drop me a line, stop by. I'd love to talk shop. The presentation I'm going to give here today is creating a strength and conditioning program for your high school or college. Before I get too deep into things, it's not just for people that don't have a program created yet. It's for people that, you could tie this to a lot of different things. The same tactics I'm going to talk about in creating your strength and conditioning program are the same tactics you should use if you have a program but you're trying to grow or trying to change or try to improve. The same exact tactics, especially when you're talking about dealing with upper management, how to gain things from a budget, from a financial standpoint, equipment, staffing, whatever it may be. Hopefully what you guys get out of this the most is as a personal challenge wherever you're at, whether you're trying to break into things and create something at a high school or college, whether you already exist there or whether you're not even in a high school or college setting, but you have a drive to grow or you feel that challenge to kind of grow and improve things with whatever vision you may have. So if you can't tie it exactly to trying to create something, all those things are connected. So hopefully you can get something out of it from there. Also, before I get too deep into things, this is kind of a facelifted version of what I presented at this past year at the National Conference, if anyone got a chance to check that out on the website. But it's some of the same stuff, but there's a lot of extra stuff that I want to do as a next step with this. With every section here, I've got a half hour to talk about basically a 10-year presentation. And it's pretty impossible to cover all the stuff I want to cover. With every section, I've got about 3 or 4 pages worth of checklists, resources, articles, presentations, everything that can go along with this if you want to take it a step further. So I've got a stack of cards here. I've got a slide at the very end that's got my email address. If you have the slides, download the slides. Please reach out to me after this, whether you think you're interested in it or not. Reach out to me, but be prepared. If you're going to reach out to me and connect with me, I'm going to engage in a pretty in-depth conversation with you, and we're going to take this thing a step further with everything, with growth. I'm very passionate about growing. Very passionate about challenging people with that and getting those deep conversations and getting somewhere with this profession. All right, so that's kind of the preface here. Definitely want to start off giving thanks. I don't hear a lot of people saying this, but it's been a huge part for me, thanking my current and former intern staff. I'm very blessed. When I first started, it wasn't like this, but I'm on a staff with 12 strength and conditioning coaches, 2 full-time and 9 intern assistants. And it's grown over the years to develop into that. And I'm going to talk a lot about that and the vision that we've had after we got things started. But very blessed to have been surrounded by some great coaches. A lot of coaches get a lot out of their mentors, and I have as well. I've got that on there. I've learned a lot through mentors in the profession, but I've learned a tremendous amount being challenged by a lot of my intern assistants and interns and assistant coaches over the years. So huge, huge thank you for that. And then my wife's here for the presentation today as well. If you're married, you know you're married to the profession and you're married to your spouse, and she's been doing a good job sharing that and allowing me to live out my passion without having any type of issues with that family balance, and so that's been a great thing too. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. I've already talked about what we're going to do with this, but it's split into pretty much 3 main parts, this presentation. There's the preparation work that you have to do, everything behind the scenes, whether you're trying to create something or whether you're trying to promote or negotiate for a change or grow in any way. There's a lot of prep work that has to happen first before you need to step into that door and actually attack that. You have to be prepared because you never know when you're going to need to throw your sales pitch out, when you're going to need to impress the higher ups or whoever it may be. It may be a spur of the moment thing that you're not prepared, that you don't foresee. So you got to do all the prep work on your own, and then getting your foot in the door, actually taking action and doing those things, the negotiations themselves and what that entails, the different leverage points you can use to get what you need to get done, and then what to do once you're in, how to establish that for success long term, 5 years, 10 years down the road, how to continue that growth and how to keep moving forward through that. All right, so preparation is a huge thing. I teach this with my staff and our staff development. These are all some quotes that we definitely push and live by. But if you're not taking the time to prepare right now with whatever it is you're shooting for, with your staff, with your vision for your department, with you personally, if you don't know where you stand, where your staff is, and have a plan for what you're shooting for with fundraising, with anything else, with your goals, then you're going to fail. If you haven't sat down, this being the New Year time period right now, if you haven't assessed 2015, and analyze how you've done, your own personal strengths and weaknesses, your department, your program strengths and weaknesses, whether you hit your goals, whether you didn't, and then laying out a plan for 2016 for the spring semester, or even for the first half, second half of the semester, for the summer, for the long-term point of the year, for you, for your staff, for your department, for everything. If you haven't done those things, you're already failing. You have to buy into that as the foundation, that point that you have to get to first. So when you're trying to create something in a high school or college setting, or when you're trying to get something to grow, the passion is something that's got to be first. With the preparation, you have to check yourself inwardly first. If you're not passionate about this field, if you don't have the qualities that I listed up there, the field's going to wear you down. And intrinsically, you're not going to have anything to fall back on whenever the superficial stuff doesn't go your way, because it won't. It doesn't go your way a lot of the times. And it's tough to break through certain barriers of upper management understanding your world, or trying to create certain things to people that don't necessarily buy into you right off the bat. And these are the qualities you have to have deep down for you to be able to outlast that, to withstand that. In the extra resources I'm going to give out, part of that is there's a lot of different steps on there that we do as a staff in defining yourself. You have to define what you believe in, what your standards are. I heard a great presentation right in here with Coach Adam Fight talking about the why. Why are you doing this? And he referenced the book Start With Why with Simon Sinek, which is a good read as well. Asking that question, why are you in this? And then when you answer that question, why is it that? Ask why 5 times in a row and really get to the heart of it, of defining yourself. That commitment, that sacrifice, persistence, open-mindedness, confidence. I mean, I could dive into all those qualities. They're self-explanatory, but you have to really honestly check yourself. What I highly suggest you doing, if you've never had this done before as a big action step, have somebody else critique you. Have somebody else evaluate you. Another one of the extra resources that I'm going to give out is an example of an evaluation form. Just a very basic evaluation, 16-question evaluation form, critiquing you, your professionalism, your personality, the results you get, the performance you have in the profession. You have to know where you stand. You have to know what you believe in, because that's what's going to be the foundation. That's what reflects your coaching style. That's what reflects your vision and your beliefs, your morals, your standards, the environment you grew up in, everything. That shapes your unique imprint on this profession, and that's what makes this a great profession. It's not one set way, but you have to spend time thinking about those things and defining those things, because that's the lens that you're going to look through with everything else. That's who you are, and that's how you're going to see every situation when you're in the trenches with your athletes, dealing with discipline issues, talking with upper management. That spills over into everything. So I can't emphasize enough how important that is. So that's what I'm talking about here, the different things you should define. I've got a 2-page document of exactly how to do this, the questions to ask yourself, of the different training program key components. There's about 15 or 20 different training principles. Whether you want to call it training philosophy, training principles, bottom line is, I know a lot of people don't like to use the term philosophy because it signifies that maybe you have it all figured out, right? And I don't think that's the case. So when I use that term, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's something where, what are the key components that are for you, for your program? And when you have those key components, what are the different things in training that are most important for you? And what are the ways at this point in your career right now that you feel like is the best way to accomplish that? There's certain principles that regardless of what teams you're training, regardless of what atmosphere you're in, those principles don't change. If you ever talk to Coach Ron McKeefe or read his book or listened to any of his presentations, he's big on being principle-based as well. And I'm huge on that, just like that, because you have to have some key things that you don't waver on. And then the other ways that you accomplish those key things are the things that you adapt with the situation that you've got. So you've got to define all those things. And then once you get in the setting, you make the adjustments and you kind of go from there. But when you get in these meetings, it's important to have that laid out, and it's very impressive when you can talk in that way. And then the last thing, when preparing for yourself, you have to try to monitor and maintain your own personal stressors and try to get things in as much of a balance as you can and get some momentum going personally, because what you don't want to do is jump into something that's going to be stressful with a lot of financial stress, relationship stress, emotional stress that you could already have dealt with, that you could have structured things a little bit better to have maybe alleviated some of that stress, because there's a lot of uncontrolled stress that you're going to be having coming down the road, which is fine. You can handle that if you have your ducks in a row with everything else. And on the extra resources, some people that have helped me a lot with personal structure, with time management, with scheduling. Michael Hyatt has helped me a tremendous amount. John Maxwell has helped me a tremendous amount. Both of those guys have tons and tons of resources you can purchase, but they have hours and hours and hours worth of resources you can download and plug in your own scheduling. There's plenty of apps out there as well. But I give all that away in the free resources I was telling you about too. And then Dave Ramsey's been a big help for me as far as financial stress and financial planning, but there's plenty of great people out there too. But getting yourself on a budget and trying to manage and at least get some momentum going on what personal stressors you may have. I highly, highly suggest that, because as I'll say in the negotiation part of this talk, you have to know what you can handle, where you can bend, and where if you compromise too much in a negotiation, where you're going to break. And being able to handle those stressors is a big part of that, in defining that. All right, so that was with you. Now it's with them, with the organization. Still talking about preparation here. This is a big part of it. All right, so defining the structure of the organization, either the one that you're trying to get a program created at or wherever you're at, define that structure, define the organization. Who are the key people that you need to know? Who are the key people that you need to start trying to figure out how they tick, how they work? When you're talking about negotiating, you need to already know everything about them. Any supporters that you may have, you've got to do your homework, look things up about them, find out what it is what buttons you can push that we'll talk about later on the leverage points, that you can really gain some momentum with that, okay? And the extra resources with this section, I give you my full networking 101 presentation that we give in-house to all of our staff. It's basically a 2-page, very basic, nothing crazy new, but just all the basics, etiquette that you should have whenever you're meeting new people and networking and connecting, and how to establish and continue that connection, how to stay organized with developing your network. But it's extremely important, as I'll talk about, the relationship building side of things is huge. If you're trying to create something, or if you're trying to get growth in any area, if you've established relationships and contacts, you have a level of trust there. When you have the level of trust, people tend to buy in and they don't question you as much. You don't have to spend as much time explaining all the reasons behind why you do it. It's good to have that stuff in your back pocket as well, but a lot of the times you can show them that you're there to make their life easier, and when they believe that, when they believe in you, everything becomes that much easier, especially when you're trying to break into something for the first time. This isn't, I don't think you're doing yourself justice if you have a desire to start a program somewhere, but you're not going about building relationships first. If you don't already have a connection with a program that you're trying to create, with somebody at the school, with that last list I just showed, with somebody on that list, if you don't have a connection there already, you need to take the time to try to develop some connections. It doesn't have to be somebody direct. It can be a friend of a friend, but exhaust yourself trying to find ways you can have common ground, because that's how you start the negotiation talks. That's how you start the relationship building, is that common ground. It has to happen that way first. So that's some extra resources that I'll be giving away too with that, with the networking planning. But you've got to find that connection. Okay, so now onto the selling points and leverage points. This is kind of the meat and potatoes that everybody always asks me about whenever we get in conversations about this. There's some great articles out there from Mark Watts about getting some leverage points on how to create a position for strength and conditioning. I've listened to some great presentations from some other coaches too. These are just a few. I'm going to go into some more when we get into the you and them negotiation slides. But financial impact, bottom lines, profits, losses, liabilities, reputation, satisfaction for the employees and students. There's probably 2 or 3 more slides worth that I'll go over with that. The resource I want to give out with this is all these things, like paragraphs on each thing, on different examples of statistics you can throw out. Position statements from the NSCA on why having a strength and conditioning professional is so important. And maybe even going around things with that, a 50-page document of all the different responsibilities that a strength and conditioning coach would have if they were at that facility. And throwing that and presenting that to them and say, look, if you don't have somebody like me here, how are you accomplishing these things? Because if you're not, that's a liability waiting to happen, a lawsuit waiting to happen. These are things that whether you hire me or not, that's got to happen. You've got to pay attention to these things. So even if you don't use statistics like a quote in the NSCA with 80% of injuries are related to some type of supervision problems in the weight room. And that's a huge leverage point. You need to know those statistics. You need to know those things. And I give the NCAA statements in there. I give all and these are big PDF documents. These are 50 to 100-page documents a piece. And you need to take the time to look through those, highlight key things, and figure out what's good for your area. But the leverages, the liabilities, it's sad, but you can do your own Google searches, but I'll have some linked in there as well of injuries, diseases, even deaths of improper supervision. I don't think that it's a negative thing to utilize those things. What you're doing is you're bringing justice to those deaths by trying to make the profession a better place instead of just leaving it where it was. And you're utilizing that to for the greater good of this profession. So I think it's to our advantage to professionally use those stories to help with those things. But we'll get a little bit more into that in these negotiation slides here. Let me get a quick sip. Do you have any questions so far? We're going to shout out here at the halfway point. All right, good. We'll keep rolling. So now you mesh the two together. Your vision, your understanding of yourself, your program, everything there, who you have to present that to, and finding the way to best share your vision where you're using what you want to accomplish in the words that they want to hear. And there's definitely an art to that. So here's some more of the points I was telling you about in the negotiations. The things we like to brag about the most are the athletic performance, drop in injuries, helping out with character development, which these are all true things. These are things that we can do as strength and conditioning professionals. The higher-ups don't care about those things, or they don't care at least about the X's and O's a lot of times. What you can do to tie that in is, okay, I can help with performance and decrease injuries. What that does is it puts our athletic program in a better position to be successful. If our athletics program is successful, now all of a sudden we have a little bit more press and media. Now we can get better recruits, we have better alumni, we have better donations coming in. I tag an article on the resources to Florida Gulf Coast, Dunk City, right? When they were in the Sweet 16 and then the Elite 8, well, they only made it to the Sweet 16. It's my alma mater. I like to give them a little extra credit. But there's articles on there of how they went up, I think, 300% in enrollment just that week alone. And that's the success of just a basketball program. So you can tie yourself into that. Do we claim that success? No, the success isn't directly because of us, but we are a part of that puzzle, and we can help with that. So those are the things that indirectly you want to try to present to the higher-ups. That's what they care about. They care about those bigger picture, zoomed-out things, not the little X's and O's of this guy's performance got better or we helped with those injuries. All right, but on the injury thing, a big thing for us at our school was convincing the president that either, hey, look, you're going to pay for these injuries as far as surgeries, or you can pay someone like myself to prevent those injuries. All right, now, that's a ballsy thing to be able to promise that you can have a reduction in injuries. So on the flip side of that, for personal and professional development, you better make sure you're in a position of knowledge and growth and experience where you can deliver in that within the first 2 to 3 years. Maybe not the first semester you're there. It takes a long time to establish these things. But I had the confidence to do that, and I think hopefully you can get to the point, if you're not there already, that you have the confidence to say those same things. But we've been very successful in reducing our major surgical injury rates, soft tissue injuries, all non-contact injuries in a large-scale way to where you convince the president, look, you're hiring these people, but you're also not paying these bills. It's a win-win. Not only are you preventing these things, but it doesn't cost you anything. So talking dollars and cents to them. The problem with that is, if they ever talk to you about, is it research-based, the problem is there's not an overwhelming amount of research out there that shows that hiring a strength and conditioning professional is going to be cost like a break-even cost point, the connection point there. What you have to do is be creative with tracking the injuries, and I can share with you all day long our injury reduction rates, the injuries going down as the staff developed and as things got better in our program. I'd be happy to share that. There's an overwhelming amount of examples as far as people's experience, but as far as scientific research, if anybody finds articles like that, please share, because I'd be happy to pass those around, because there's a lack of research kind of showing those things that we believe to be true. So, but you want to make sure you're pushing those ideas too. Obviously, team building, character development, helping a lot with your athletes, helping them be a life coach to them. That's kind of what we can help with as well. You all know, as strength and conditioning professionals, we have a relationship with those athletes like no other coach. We're around them a lot more often than all the rest of the coaches. So the personal connection and life change that we can impact them with just goes through the roof too. Are your upper management people driven more by that, with that sentimental intrinsic value there? Those are things that you've got to make sure you know, because these are leverage points when you get in this meeting that you've got to use. All right, other examples here. Giving individual attention. Another part for our school was retention and satisfaction. If you're in a small college, numbers tend to play a big role, whether you're recruiting and bringing in extra athletes or trying to keep athletes there. But retention in college, just in general, with NCAA regulations or with the government with financial aid restrictions, you have to show that you're graduating a certain number of people to maintain your financial aid status and different things. Well, you can play a part in that. Because of the connection that you can have with those relationships, you can tie that into improvements with retention, with keeping kids happy, with keeping people around, and the overall atmosphere, internal reputation of the school. So again, more leverage points with that. Recruiting benefits we talked about, medical costs, different things. So these are all the topics. I kind of talked about a little bit of the research behind some of those things, but that's, again, the extra step behind this that I want to share with everybody. All right, and the next thing is you've written out, you defined yourself, your vision, your dreams, everything that you have. Now when you get into the actual negotiations, when you're doing the preparation, you have to know which action steps you're going to take. What's your dreams versus your wants versus your needs? The things that you have to have. You can't walk out of that meeting until you have these things, or you're not going to be successful with your program. And when to ask for the other things, and how to term those things for them as if they are still things that you need. It's not just a random thing, that there's some value to that. Being able to phase things in and knowing that you don't have to have everything accomplished at once. All right, the extra resource with this, I share my expansion plan with how we did things at Weber Athletics. So I'm in my 7th year now. We started in 2009. It was just me. I had an intern with me from undergrad, and we've expanded now. I've told you where we're at now as far as the staff. We had 4 old pieces of metal that we called squat racks that I was scared to death to squat in. We had 4 powerlifting benches, and we had 4 old platforms that were so rotten that as soon as you dropped the weight, splinters started throwing everywhere into people's legs. So we got rid of a lot of that stuff as quick as we could, and I'm fortunate to say with our expansion plan, steps at a time, and we've got a full weight room, everything that I could ask for. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened in phases, having a plan and taking baby steps and little battles of negotiations along the way to have that. If you don't have a plan with what you want and then what you could get by with every step along the way, you're not going to be successful in those meetings. When I went in there and talked to our president, he asked me what it was that we were meeting about. I told him. He said, "We can't do that. Who do you want me to fire to be able to give you that?" How do you answer that question? You have to be ready for that. Who do you want me to fire? Do you enjoy getting paid? Don't you want to continue to get paid? Well, then don't ask me those questions. Get out of my office. Like that kind of conversation. All right. Now, I'm not talking bad about our president. He's a great guy. But at a given time, at given conversations that you have to understand the viewpoints that they're coming from. You have to be able to shoot back really quickly to be able to stop what they're saying or get their attention, or know if they're bluffing and trying to get you out of there and drag you along so that you don't ask anymore, or if they truly aren't going to budge in what they have. And you have to talk to other people that have dealt with those situations with that person sometimes to understand what that is. All right, and then SWOT analysis, I'll go over that as well. So there's 2 different models I have here. I put them in the book. The ADDIE model is really more or less just a mental reminder. Okay, you have an idea, a project, a plan with something. The idea here is that you constantly have to have evaluation. Evaluation is key. Whenever you have a plan of growth or you're implementing some things, even when you get what you want and you implement a program, an expansion plan, getting equipment, whatever it may be, have a plan, evaluate it. Have the design, have other people cross-check what you're thinking about. Don't just do it yourself. Bounce ideas off people, see if there's holes in it, then reevaluate. Have that develop, take action, and implement, and then reevaluate how it went. Always revising things. So this is more or less a mental note. But the SWOT analysis is what's been huge for me. Anytime you have to make a key decision, whether it's a negotiation, which is the example that I'll give on negotiating a salary, for example, or any key decision on making a move for a job, whether or not you want to have kids. Any major decision you have to make, I highly suggest doing a SWOT analysis. If you've never heard of it, I'll give you a brief explanation of it here. I don't know if this is the laser. All right, good. So we got strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. There's the SWOT. On the top, this is internally within the organization. All right, so what are the strengths and weaknesses of that given situation internally? I'm going to use the example of trying to negotiate for a salary. How much time do I have, Doug? Where are we at? 10 minutes? Okay, good. What type of strengths in that given situation? Let's say I push for a $40,000 salary. Let's say they lowball me and they say they're only going to pay me the bare minimum of full-time, somewhere between $17,000 and $20,000. But that's all they're going to give me. When I'm looking to make that decision now on what I've got on the table, strengths and weaknesses, the strengths of that, well, I wasn't getting paid before, and now I'm getting paid, so at least I'm getting the full-time status and benefits internally with that. The weaknesses with that, internally with that, okay, I'm not getting what I wanted to get as far as money. They're taking advantage of me. Does that tell me something about the organization? Can I make do with the bills that I may have with what I've got, okay? Externally, opportunities and threats. Okay, I'm taking a big pay cut. Are they willing to give me other things in the meantime? Can they, okay, you can't pay me this. Can you allow me to get 5 interns? Can I get this equipment in a year or so? Can you support me with this, this, or that? Like maybe get some leverage points out of it. Okay, a potential threat with that. Am I turning down other opportunities elsewhere that would maybe pay me more? Am I saying no to something that could be better, an external threat, when I'm taking this job, this position? I'll give you more examples on the extra work if that doesn't make sense. But internally and externally, you look at that. And when you go to make the decision, you look at everything on the right-hand side, everything that's harmful, and weigh it against everything on the left-hand side, everything that's helpful. You have it all sitting there in front of you. And then you just look at the risk to reward and try to have a better clarity on the decision that you're going to make. All right, so I'm going to keep zipping through here. So getting your foot in the door, actually doing what you want to do, living in those meetings, having the negotiations. Everything's situational. I wish I could go in and just tell you 20 examples like I just said about a negotiation with me and the president, but talk with me afterwards or communicate with me, touch base with me, and I'd love to keep doing that. But your situation is going to be different, and I would love to brainstorm whatever your situation is. If it's growth and trying to ask for something extra or establishing something that doesn't exist, I'd love to be that person to think outside the box of how many different situations you should be ready for. Match what you can offer to what they need to hear. Make sure you put it in words of how they want to hear it, and make sure you're being honest with what you can deliver as well, and not trying to be sneaky with things. Sell yourself, sell your system, and be excited. The best thing you could do, and this isn't just with this, is interviews with anything, show the passion that you have. Don't be a quiet, slow, timid, unconfident kind of person, because they'll sense that, and the business type mind people, the higher ups, they'll see that, they'll attack that, and you're done. Be energetic, be passionate, and use that as a leverage point. Get them so excited that you can even turn around and say, look how excited you are just hearing about this. Imagine if you gave me an opportunity to do it, what I can do with these things. So live that passion and take those chances. Don't be afraid to risk some things with that. Again, with those situations, I have to give you specific examples more one-on-one instead of just giving you blanket examples here. I talked about all the different things you can use in your negotiations already. Okay, once you're in, after you get your program started, we've been able to establish a very good growth and development plan with assistance, with mentorship, with internship programs, internship development, how to get your staff going, how to grow and improve with that, how to phase in training with your athletes. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 as far as maybe just getting everybody on a program, then getting sport specific, then getting individualized as you can grow and improve things. Many of us in our positions, we don't even have the ability to coach everybody through everything we want to do. We have to just start telling them to do stuff on their own because we don't have the personnel or the ability to do it. But you have your plan laid out, and again, I give examples of how we did ours, and I'd love to chat with you guys about that afterwards on this stuff. But you have to piece things together one step at a time, all right? I highly suggest having a vision for staff and staff development, and having a vision for athlete development, and having a vision for your department and departmental development outside of the staff with equipment, with everything else. At least those 3 main areas, and set a plan once you get your spot to how you can piece those things together and take a step along the way with everything you've got. Things that have helped me a lot is integrating other people into your vision and doing all the small things right with all the departments on campus. If you can do all the small things right in the business office, always picking up your pay stub when you need to, always going in there with the correct terminology and format on the purchase orders, always taking care of maintenance requests and work orders and however the mailing system works, and whatever it is, the rules at your school, know them and be the best you can be at those things. I can't tell you how much that's helped the internal reputation for me at the school, where people get hassled on trying to get things done. I can break rules and still get things done. I don't do that, but I've had that happen before. You have people come in there and they're yelling at them for breaking the rule. I go in there an hour later, I overlooked something, forgot to have something signed, and they're like, oh, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. And then it gets pushed through. Little details like that is what helps you win those little battles. If everything becomes for lack of better terms, a pissing contest, then all the little battles start wearing them down. Next thing you know, every time they see you walking around on campus, it's, oh, here he goes. He's going to ask for something. We're going to battle again here. All right, you have to have some strategies with that. Whenever you ask for things, don't do it face-to-face at first. Maybe send emails. That way they don't get that negative connotation when they see you face-to-face all the time. Make it a point every time you see somebody face-to-face to be happy, energetic, and greet them. Don't ask for anything. Make it a point to do that every single time. And you start to establish that subconscious reputation before they even realize it. Then you can get into conversations, and 30 minutes into the conversation, you find a way to get that topic to come up. If it doesn't come up, you don't ask. You save it for another conversation tomorrow or the next day. But the timing of those types of things is crucial when building that momentum in those details. Branch out. I got a picture here. The thing that's helped me the most in the position I'm at, I only have a minute or two left. The nugget that helped me the most is integrate yourself so much in that school, in that organization, with everything you can, not just your job, with everything that you can, so that when the time comes for a decision to be made of keep the job or go somewhere else, they offer you the position or they don't, they get you the vision plan that you have to grow or they don't, that if they say no, they're hurting themselves. If you have to step away from what you did, I worked for 1.5 years at Weber with no pay to prove that they needed a full-time spot. When I did that, my goal was to integrate so much that you can't get that house out of there without destroying the whole tree. You can't do it. That was my plan. Integrate so much in there, be so valuable to that organization that you have the leverage now and you're not even getting paid. Ask for what you want and walk away if they don't give it to you. They just destroyed themselves. They're not going to do it. They're bluffing. They're going to come back, and they did. They came back in those negotiations. They met the terms that we needed, and you go on from there. But what better person to have faith in than have the faith in yourself of what you did, what you can do, what you can accomplish. And that's how you do that. You establish that. Take care of the other departments, become invaluable, and try to grow. The different phases, I'll talk about it in the extra work that I give. Make sure you stay plugged in. Make sure you have accountability in place. I know a lot of coaches that they don't grow any, they don't change any, they don't improve any because they don't have a system of accountability in place. Nobody checks them. No, they don't have evaluations from their AD. They don't have evaluations from other coaches. Have somebody come in and evaluate your program, how you're doing professionally, and see what somebody else says. Get out of your comfort zone and grow and improve and change. All these things are important. Stay plugged into the NSCA, to different special interest groups that are going on. Write things down and never get comfortable. Always make sure you're recording stuff and analyze your notes the next year so you don't make the same mistakes because there's so much going on when you're trying to integrate these things, you can forget stuff real quickly. And that's all I got.